Hey everybody, it's GobletX, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing another premiere draft of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Without further ado, let's get into our Pack 1 Pick 1. I really don't like any of these uncommons. We have a couple decent commons, the Desperate Bloodseeker and the Cactarantula, but I am interested in trying out this Mythic. Collector's Cage is a 2-mana artifact. It has Hideaway 5, so when it hits the board, look at the top 5 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, put the rest on the bottom. Then for 1 mana, you can tap it and put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, and if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you can cast the exiled, well, you can play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. So it doesn't seem that hard to trigger the Hideaway on this card, right? Like, if you just play a 2-mana 2/2 and then a 3-mana 3/3, honestly, if you just play 3 creatures, you put a +1/+1 counter on one of them and you cast a spell for free, so that's pretty cool. And you get to keep this on the board to keep putting +1/+1 counters around, so I feel like this card's probably better than it looks at first glance, just because it's pretty easy to cast your spell off of it, so we'll see. I think the card looks pretty decent, though. For pick 2, we've got some really solid uncommons, Jolene and Vile Smasher for Rakdos or Gruul, respectively, but we've got a really nice white rare to start things off, so I don't really want to be white, black, red, or white, red, green, or anything like that. I don't want to immediately start 3 colors, so I think I'm going to go for the best monocolored card out of the pack, which is Mirage Mesa for flexibility, or Keykeeper, Hard Bristle Bandit, This Town Ain't Big Enough. They're all kind of tied, so we could just stick to white with Keykeeper, or just take Mirage Mesa, honestly. I think I'll just take the Mirage Mesa here, fixing no matter what colors we get to end up in. Pick 3, now Giant Beaver is my favorite monocolored common by quite a bit. I do like Mourner's Surprise a lot, though. Yeah, that's not true. Giant Beaver and Mourner's Surprise are pretty equivalently good. I do like green-white a little bit better than white-black, but black's usually a little bit more open than green, because everybody knows by now that green is the strongest color, at least at lower rarities pretty easily. It's the most consistent color for sure. I don't think I'm going to take a hit in power level to just take the Keykeeper here. I think we do take one of these monocolored cards. Could honestly coin flip on it, but I am going to take the gamble on being able to get into green in this draft pod. It's less likely than being able to get into black, but if we can be green-white, I do think that's the strongest archetype. Pick 4, we've got Bridled Bighorns, a pretty solid mount out of white. Like that card a good bit. Next best cards in the pack, Apothecary's fine, Prickly Pear's fine, Jailbreak Scheme's fine. I think these are all just about as strong as the Bighorn, so we'll go on color with the Bighorn. Pick 5, alright, this is a good sign. There's a Take Up the Shield, and a Prosperity Tycoon, and an Omen Port Vigilante still here. You go ahead and take the Prosperity Tycoon. This works really well with our Collector's Cage. Gives us a 4-power and a 1-power creature on board off of just 1 spell. It's also just a great card by itself, too, so take the Tycoon. Alright, pick 6, we have decent white commons and uncommons again. Vengeful Townsfolk, fine filler creature. Fierce Retribution's a fine filler removal spell. Be fine with either of these. We're starting with 3 4-mana creatures this draft, so we do want to worry about the creature curve, but this is not a 4-mana creature, so not terrible. Do think white tends to be more aggressive than defensive, so I don't love the destroy an attacking creature kind of removal, and for 6 mana to destroy any creature, that is quite a lot. I think I'm going to take Townsfolk over the Retribution, but it is pretty close. Ooh, pick 7 Cactarantula is good. If you have enough deserts, this is a 5-mana 6/5 reach that draws you a card when your opponent kills it, which is wonderful. Right now we look like a non-mount green-white deck, which isn't exactly what you want, but they are 2 very strong colors. Pick 8 Mystical Tether, let's go white! Well, I'm happy that the color of our rare is open and we get to stick to white here. Dance of the Tumbleweeds is also a really solid green card. Ruthless Lawbringer is a great uncommon for a black-white deck. You get to play a lot of the little mercenary producers like Prosperity Tycoon, so you can just sack a 1/1 to blow up anything with this, but Mystical Tether 100% makes the cut. So we take that. Pick 9, there's still a Cactarantula here as well. So I guess it's going to be green-white beef.deck. Pick 10, both of the Key Keepers are in here, and they were the only white cards in this pack. Let's go. This is all working out real well. The green not as well, but these were still some late Cactarantulas. White is going just perfectly. Take a white mythic, get past plenty of white cards. Ooh, take up the shield, pick 13. That feels great. This is a really good combat trick. If you are racing your opponent, this wins the race single-handedly. They were trying to trade with your card. Now they don't trade anymore. You just win that fight and gain a bunch of life. Well, this is disappointing. It's disappointing because this pack is too good. Right? Miriam is the best signpost uncommon in this format. She's completely absurd in a green-white mount deck. Because all of your mounts, like your 2-mana 2/2 Burrow Fiends and stuff, are now just getting +1/+1 counters by attacking, which is already what you want to be doing. Burrow Fiend is an incredible mount, a 2-mana 2/2, but it often attacks as a 4/4, 5/5, even bigger by saddling it up. Mystical Tether is more incredible removal out of white. Prairie Dog can often get a bunch of +1/+1 counters. Just whenever you're running out of stuff to do, this is just getting bigger, and a 2-mana 2/2 lifelink's already good. Wily Duke draws you a card every time you saddle any of your cards. It's also got 4 power, so it's really easy to saddle with it. I want this whole pack, and I can only take one of these cards, and will probably not get any of them back. Well, I might get one of them back, so that's what's so disappointing. All of the great cards clumped up in one pack, although I guess we'll see. Pack 2, pick 2, we get a great card. Frontier Seeker's excellent for a mount deck, which is a green-white deck. You get to pull a plains out of your deck or a mount creature out of your deck. Very flexible card draw in this archetype. Pick number 3. Oh, wow, this draft pod is golden for us. We can take a giant beaver for another mount, but I do already have 3 4-drops, or we can take the heath for another desert to make the Cactarantula more consistently cheap, or we can take the green blade, which is fixing, and it makes sure we keep hitting our land drops. And it can be a big threat of its own if we manage to get these Heaths and Mirage Mesas late. I'm going to take the Green Blade. I think the card's really strong, really flexible. It's a great card to saddle up onto all of your mounts as well. Big fan of Green Blade, but again, this is a really good pack. All 3 of these would be excellent additions, and Mobile Homestead is perfectly fine in mount decks as well. Pick 4, we have Intrepid Stablemaster, which is decent mana ramp no matter what, and it can double ramp into your mounts. That doesn't matter too much. There aren't a bunch of really expensive mounts for this. I think the best thing this does generally is it lets you play like Bighorn and Giant Beaver a turn early. There's also Trained Erranks, which is a really good aggressive beat stick for the mounts decks. It's one of the cheapest mounts you can play at just 2 mana. It gets First Strike. A 3-power First Striker is really hard to block throughout like the whole game. You know, we do have 2 4-mana mounts already, so I guess I'll go with Stablemaster, but I could really see Erranks actually being the better card. This might be the wrong pick. But I do like the potential blowout curves of turn 3 Giant Beaver or turn 3 Bighorn. Pick 5, do really like having the mount count really high for Wily to be consistently tapping. Plus, if we get Miriam to come back, if we're the biggest luck sack in the universe and Miriam comes back, we're going to want more mount creatures. So I'll take Grizzly over Sterling Supplier and Stagecoach Security. I think both of these cards are a little bit better than Grizzly if you don't care about the mount creature type, but if you do care about the mount creature type, then Grizzly's a pretty high pickup as well. And there we go. We are caring about that mount creature type. Throw from the Saddle is excellent when you use it on a mount creature, and still great removal otherwise. Get a permanent +1/+1 counter on the board while killing your opponent's blocker and clearing a path. Pick 7. Plenty of power 4 greater creatures in green in the format, so Bristlepack Sentry is super playable. I like that better than the defensive removal spell of Ariet's Lullaby. Same problem as the Fierce Retribution had before. It's pretty slow. Another Prosperity Tycoon or our first Spinewoods Paladin. We kind of already have double Cactarantula for the big 5-mana finishers. I think I'll take another Tycoon again because of the Collector's Cage synergy seems pretty good. Like the wide board state. Pick 9, probably not playing Gold Pan or Lush Oasis, but I'll take the Lush Oasis. If nothing else, this can be just a tapped green source that helps cast the Cactarantulas a turn earlier. Might be worth it if we don't get enough on-color deserts. Bucolic Ranch is a desert. And it doesn't make our mana base that much worse, because we do have some mounts to cast off of it. We could run the ranch. And then, you know, for flooding out, it is a potential card draw engine. A really slow one, though, because realistically, we're going to have like 5 mounts or something, so it's going to be quite unlikely that we are hitting creatures off of it. But being another desert is kind of big. All right, we didn't wheel any of the great cards we wanted, sadly. Pack 3, pick 1. We take the really efficient mount, I think, of the Stubborn Burrow Fiend over the Fortune. Fortune has some really fun combos, but it's much less consistent. Where, you know, a lot of games is just going to be a 3-mana 2/4 just sitting there. Whereas Burrow Fiend is just always going to be really big for that cheap. So I'm going to go for the Burrow Fiend over the Fortune, but Fortune is fun and powerful as well. I think it's just a little weaker than the Burrow Fiend. Steer Clear is good for this kind of deck too. But let's get cheap creatures, make sure we have at least like 5 2-drops, preferably even a couple more. Pack 3, pick 2, Trained Erranks versus Buried in the Garden. Neither of these is going to come back to us, and I think with 2 removal spells right now, Buried in the Garden is a little bit of a higher pick. Just excellent removal, getting rid of any non-land permanents, and getting some extra mana. The only flaw is that it can be destroyed. It is an enchantment. Pack 3, pick 3, no creatures here, so we take another throw from the saddle, and I'm perfectly happy with that. That's definitely better than the Steer Clear. Pick 4, get another Sterling Supplier as a finisher, or random main deckable Naturalize, Requisition Raid. Not really pumped about either of these. What's our creature count right now? We're at 19, so cut a couple creatures and call it a deck. I don't think Patient Naturalist makes a ton of sense for this deck. Vengeful Townsfolk's a little weaker. That's a potential cut. I'm cool with a third throw from the saddle or a second take up the shield. Take up the shield has kind of diminishing returns. I don't love Sheriff of Safe Passage, but we do have double Prosperity Tycoon. So it's probably a little better in this deck than it would have been in any of our others. Yeah, Sheriff or throw. We'll take another throw, though. Pick 6. Tumbleweed Rising's pretty fine. We have 3 mana 4 power creatures. That or just another Bighorn. I don't think I have room for more 4-drops, though. I'll take a Tumbleweed. I think I'm going to cut these 2. Definitely play Drove or Grizzly. Yeah, now we have 3 4-power 3-drops to go with the Tumbleweed Rising. Make that more consistent. Do get another Take Up the Shield anyway, even if we don't want it, which we probably don't. I don't think I'm playing a Steer Clear, though. Overthrows and Tether and Buried in the Garden. We cut some 5-drops at this point. Maybe we just cut all the deserts. Play all untapped mana. No, then we don't get to use Greenblade. Maybe one of each. Cut a Supplier, cut a Cactarantula. Pick 9. Well, there's another half on color desert. I'll take that over Steer Clear. Another Vengeful Townsfolk. That's going to get cut. So we have 4 deserts right now. This is 27 non-land cards. Yeah, we need to cut a few more still. Guess I'll just figure it out when we get to the deck building at this point. Can't make my decisions. I kind of want to cut like 1 Take Up the Shield, 1 Throw from the Saddle. We ran a deck that had 4 Throw from the Saddles. That was way too much. I mean, our curve was worse than this one, but we just kept drawing like 3 or 4 Throw from the Saddles and like 1 creature, and then that creature dies and all of your throws are stuck. I don't know, maybe this is wrong, and I've just had way too bad experiences with it in the past, but I think I want to drop down to just 2 of that. Take Up the Shield has similar issues. It's not the kind of card you really want to run out multiples in the same hand, because you really need creatures. My apologies for the squeaky chair. So yeah, I'm just going to cut those right off the bat. Now, those are just really simple, really quick cuts. Tumbleweed Rising is basically another creature, and we're at 18 right now, so we're at 19 creatures. So we cut 2 creatures. Tumbleweed Rising could be one of them. We do have a lot of top end here between double supplier, double Cactarantula, but we have Buried in the Garden mana ramp, and Green Blade picks up a land from our deck. Frontier Seeker can pick up a plains from our deck. It's another way to pick up an extra land. I think we can curve in all these 5-drops, maybe even on a 16 land deck. Maybe we just like cut a Rising and a land. I do think this Tumbleweed Rising has played deceptively well a lot of the time. And this looks like a good deck for it, again, because of the like 3-4 power 3-drops. Yeah, I'll just cut like one of the 5-drops, and because I've got a good desert count and the Green Blade, I'll cut one of the big flyers, and then one last cut. This Holy Cow doesn't hit any synergies or anything, it's just kind of a decent card in general. Flyers have played well. But it's not like getting buffed by Throw from the Saddle. It's not letting us saddle our Wily Duke. It's not a particularly high power creature for Tumbleweed Rising. It's not a particularly unique power for Collector's Cage. Yeah, I'll just drop the Holy Cow and we will call it a deck here. All right, here's like the final deck list for today. A very simple, very streamlined green-white aggro deck. We have a few different synergies going on here. The main one being the big synergy of the color pair, which is saddling using our mounts. So we have Burrow Fiend, a couple Drover Grizzlies, a Bighorn, and a Giant Beaver. So with all those mounts, if we get to throw from the saddle with a mount on the board, we get a +1/+1 counter permanently. And those are all different ways to tap our Wily Duke to keep drawing cards, so that'll be super sweet, and that is the core of most green-white decks. But we also have a desert sub-theme here with the Outcaster Greenblade, always drawing us a land, making sure our mana is working out well with 4 deserts in the deck, and that's also going to make sure the Cactarantulas are 5 mana 6/5s that draw us a card when targeted, so those are excellent. We also have our spiciest card, our most interesting bomb, the Collector's Cage. 2 mana to hide away 5, so tuck one of our spells from the top 5 cards of our library underneath the Collector's Cage, and then cast it for free later when we have 3 creatures with +1/+1 counters on them on board. And then even after we do that, which again is pretty easy to do, just like have 3 different creatures on board in general, we still get to keep slamming +1/+1 counters on the board. So if we're ever flooding out, we're still making our board state better and better as the game progresses. So that card seems pretty awesome as well. Looks like a really solid, really consistent deck today, and I'm super excited to see how it does. So without further ado, let's head into the gameplay. Here we are on the draw for game 1. No white source is a pretty major downside to this hand. It will start things on turn 3 with Drover Grizzly, but turn 3 on the draw is pretty bad. And again, if we don't hit a white source, we're very far behind. I'm going to take the mulligan on this one. This is much better mana, but a slower hand in general. One is definitely awkward, but I think we keep this over mulliganing down to 5. Forsaken Miner, turn 1. Well, this could be an issue. They are getting started aggressively. A 1 mana 2/2 that can keep coming back from their grave just by committing crimes. Card is nasty. Attacks in really well against all of our 2 mana 4/2s as well. Super happy to have top decked the Frontier Seeker. Excellent draw. Actually commit to the board on turn 2. Don't think we're supposed to take the trade into the Forsaken Miner, because then they just like play a removal spell and recast it pretty soon. But I can't just keep getting hit by it. I guess I can. Because like eventually I play 4 and 5 toughness creatures. Roll from there. And I think I should play Drover Grizzly first, so that the turn that I play Wily, I get to saddle him up. He gets to hop right onto the Drover Grizzly. Well, trade into the Vault Plunderer at least. That's the perfect draw, because I'm just playing a 3-drop this turn. Now we saddle, draw a card, gain a life. That makes up for some of the life lost here. Probably just slamming down Cactarantula next turn, but if they play something super scary, I could throw from the saddle. Looks like they are stuck on mana here, even after drawing off of the Vault Plunderer. Mourner's Surprise, Graveyard Recursion, and a Chump blocker for them. There's the 5th mana. Do think we are going to slam down a Cactarantula here. So 1 mana up from them, we just send in. All they can do is Chump. Unless they have Skullduggery in hand, that would be really good for them. I could have played around Skullduggery by throwing, but it's so much worse if they don't have it. Skipping a 5-drop just to kill a 1/1. Alright, and we saddle up post-combat because we wanted the wily damage. But we also want the card draw. Alright, now I can throw from the saddle while still committing another creature to the board, so I think we will be doing that. Opponent's at 10. I don't think I block here. Just in case they can stack into enough damage to kill the Cactarantula. Yeah, they're just going to concede there. Some pretty nasty stuff from Wily Duke. And our opponent missed some pivotal land drops, so we start off 1-0 heading into game 2. Alright, here we are for game 2. On the play, I think we can wait till turn 3 to start, so we'll roll with the Drover Grizzly. Also, having a 1/1 Mercenary to saddle up onto the Grizzly is pretty nice. Makes it really easy to saddle. Oh, they surveilled a Tumblewag away? That's wild. They must be a very multicolored deck and they just don't have the mana for it or something. I mean, Pylons is the mana for it. Yeah, there's a forest too. Whoa. They have Graveyard Recursion? Probably Graveyard Recursion, yeah, if they're running the Naturalist as well. And they milled... Oh my god, our opponent's deck is a just pile of bombs. The Super Band Oko? Alright, let's play the Prosperity Tycoon. We will trade Grizzly into the Naturalist to get it out of the way and trample for a couple points of damage. Well, just 1 point of damage, but still. Better to get trample than not. Yeah, they look like they're 5-color bombs over there. All the multicolored deserts. They have a Tumblewag, they have an Oko. Pretty happy to have exile removal against this kind of deck, because... Again, I really don't think they would have milled that Tumblewag without Graveyard Recursion being either in hand or in their deck. Maybe they just didn't have any lands in hand or something. I don't know. There's the black source. That's the Graveyard Recursion color, but they just have a giant beaver for now. We're definitely cashing in as much damage as we can as quickly as possible. But it does feel painful to throw a Buried in the Garden this early. But it means hitting them for 5 and dropping a Stable Master in the same turn. And I can still hit for 4 and drop a Drover Grizzly. Or no, I can hit for 5 and drop a Drover Grizzly, right? Because I just give Tycoon indestructible if they block. Yeah, if they don't block, I get to play Grizzly and Stable Master and save Buried in the Garden for their next card. The one issue here is if they have removal spells that require them to have a creature on board, then it would have been better to just clear that thing out. Like if they have Clear Shot and their own... I always forget what it's called. Break the Saddle or something like that. You give your creature +1/+1. You shoot another creature equal to its power. But again, they're like 4 or 5 colors over there, so I feel like the removal's just as likely to not require creatures. If they were heavy in green, maybe I would have just cleared out the beaver. There's a blood hustler, and then 2 mana removal? Nope, then commit a crime with the land to buff the blood hustler. Blood hustler's definitely a problem. Life drain, and it's going to get big enough to stop any good attacks. But I can still attack in with a couple 4/2s here with trample and play a Cactarantula in the same turn. Does Tycoon give itself indestructible or any creature? Itself only. Okay. If I buried in the garden, I don't get to play Cactarantula in the same turn. I bury the giant beaver, attack for 7, pass? Because I want to keep Grizzly around to go with Cactarantula. I think I'm holding on to this thing again. I think I'm just casting a Cactarantula. I mean, I guess they're just going to definitely kill Drover Grizzly this way. But Drover Grizzly kind of dies no matter what. I want to get damage in. Definitely hoping they don't block the Tycoon. But since I only lose a mercenary, I feel like they probably won't block it. They are going to block it. Well, shoot. That means no Cactarantula anyway. Just really don't want to, like, pop the buried in the garden, and then they, like, play a bomb. And then I'm like, well, shoot. Like, I pop buried in the garden, then they cast Bonnie Paw. But if they cast Bonnie Paw, I lose anyway. Because it's 2 massive blockers, I can only deal with one of them, and I can't get past the other. They're like 5 cards ahead right now, already. If they can stabilize the board, they will win this game. So maybe it was worth just cashing in for damage. Alright. I can let the 4/2s trade off to play a 6/5, or I can not let the 4/2s trade off and then I don't play a 6/5. I'd rather trade a 4/2 into the 4/2 than buried in the garden into it. Because this means we play a 6/5 instead. If they have exactly the counter unless we pay 2, that's going to be nasty. Maybe I should have held up Stable Master just in case of that. But I was not considering blue interaction because they're so multicolored. Okay, it's a bounce spell, that's fine. It's not great, because it buys them more time, which is their most valuable resource right now. They already have plenty of cards. What they need is time to deploy them all. Quilled Charger for a 4/3. I can Burrow Fiend and Buried in the Garden and Tycoon, but then I no longer have a Buried in the Garden. That is kind of the constant issue here, isn't it? We can still just play a Cactarantula and a Burrow Fiend and be pretty happy with that, because both of these are attacking as at least 5 power creatures, which is pretty dumb. More importantly, they both attack with at least 5 toughness, so the Quilled Charger can't single-handedly block either of them. Is Burrow Fiend showing off how good it is? Top deck are 2-drop, but it's still like top decking a 5/5 threat, which is a big deal. Okay, well, I can get Abrupt Decayed. I kind of jinxed myself on that one, but... Ooh. Well, best way to deal with the Cactarantula is to kill it during combat so they don't let me draw a card. So a little sad they can do that pretty easily now. But they're down to 2 cards in hand, so they are running out of stuff. So we might be able to cast this Buried in the Garden pretty soon. And start tapping things down with Keykeeper. Just get the last bit of damage in. It is looking like just slamming this down as early as possible would have played so much better at this point, but I'm so scared of bombs in this format because every deck we've played has had a million. The majority of decks we played against has had plenty of bombs as well. Old attacks here. They might have a board wipe. They do. We get to keep Tycoon at least. I'm at 9 life against a bunch of creatures. The only thing that makes a lot of sense here is a board wipe. Maybe there's a lifelink combat trick. Trash the town. Just draw 2, sure. 2 mana, draw 2. Just a little divination there. They're back to being quite far ahead in cards. But dangerously low on blockers. Ah, it's a Rise of the Varmints deck. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And also, we're probably dead then. I haven't actually gotten to play against a Rise of the Varmints deck yet, but those are probably the best decks for stabilizing the late game because this thing is just so many blockers. Your opponent just cannot get you at all through that. Hold up. Wait a minute. That is the one thing that can get past all of those. Although they could very well just have removal in their hand still. Because, if they knew that was coming up, then they knew they didn't need to kill anything on the ground. So we are really hoping they don't have removal in their hand. If they don't, they're on a 3-turn clock. We just attack them with our flyer 3 times, and that's game. That's probably the best way to beat Rise of the Varmints decks. Just play some flyers. Unfortunately, our Keykeeper cannot tap their Quilled Chargers, because it cannot tap mounts. So we can't tap their best attacker, but we can tap the second best one. I don't really think there's any point, honestly. Your second best is a 4-3. I just blocked that with a 5-5, or 6-5. Ooh. Or they have like +1/+1 to the whole board here? They're trying to kill me in one swing? If they don't kill me, they're so dead. With 2 mana up? Okay. This is really surprising. I don't know what there is for 2 mana that's gonna do that much damage here. It's gotta be something that's like giving their whole board +1 or my whole board -1 or something. So they can wipe my board here. I guess because Tycoon's going to get indestructible anyway, we put Tycoon in way of the 4-3, we put the Cactarantula in front of the 2-2. Supplier here. This is super weird. What kind of absolute blowout is this going to be? Skullduggery? Wait, so I win, right? Yeah. All right, well, sorry, that was my Windows. That is not how I expected that game to end at all. I guess opponent was really hoping for a bad block from me. But I mean, all those varmints there, if they just held off on the defensive, like it was going to be several turns for us to try to find the victory in the sky, so I don't know. They got real impatient on that swing. And we found the good blocks, so 2-0 it is as we head into game 3. All right, here we are on the play for game 3. We're curving. We have Stable Master into Bighorn. We have the Dream Curve. 4 mana mounts on turn 3. I was about to say on turn 2. That would be super wild. And I can even do a 4 mana mount on turn 3 and play a tap land in the same turn. That's pretty spicy. Get my second green source for any Cactarantulas if the Stable Master dies. No! You weren't supposed to kill Stable Master right now. You're supposed to let me play 1 card early and then kill it. Rude. Well, now we got a Tycoon instead of Bighorn, so we can send in with the Sentry. Playing against Golgari. Green, blue, black from our opponent so far. And they're going to plot a Buzzard so they can kill something next turn and make that a 3-2. Jam in, get aggressive, put them down to 16 now. Yep, Consuming Ashes. That is exile, not kill, so the Buzzard is still a 2-1 anyway. They're gonna play real slow with the Buzzard there. Alright. The Mercenary already lets the Sentry attack in every turn, so I could play Bighorn instead of Tycoon, so that by the time I play Tycoon I can get the Indestructible. But as we just saw, Black has exile removal in the format as well, so maybe it is better to just get immediate power toughness on this board. I don't know. I'll go for the Bighorn. I like it. I enjoy spitting out a sheep every single turn. And there's so many miniature synergies for this Bristlepack Sentry that have made it so nice in the set. It's kind of weird it wasn't that great in Wilds of Eldraine, because Wilds of Eldraine had similar synergies, right? You could just put a Wicked Roll onto it, and it would be a 4-4. It did have a different name. It was technically a different card, but, you know. Alright, 4-4 blocker's annoying. I would rather have them kill the Sentry than the Bighorn, so here we are. I can only attack in with 1 anyway. They do take the trade, alright. I don't think Black has a cheap board wipe in the set. I know they have an 8 mana one. But I am just going to flood the board. And try to kill them on the next swing. Oh no, what are you? Whenever you cast a spell during your turn other than your first spell, get a 2-2 zombie. When the zombie enters the battlefield, get a +1/+1 for each other zombie. Is that a zombie? Oh, I was going to say, is that a zombie bird? No, this is a vampire. That is not a zombie bird either. But that's still, oh my god. Jesus Christ, Geralf. Okay. Outlaws of Thunder Junction says hi. The bombs do be bombing. That was 3 mana for a 2-3, a 2-2, and a 3-3. Seems pretty good. I mean, yikes, what do we do? I mean, we keep sending in Tycoon to trade 1/1s off instead of anything else. I don't have the mana to sack a token to the Tycoon and play Cactarantula in the same turn, which is a bummer. Okay, they have 3 toughness creatures here. So they could double block Bighorn with 2/3 toughness creatures. Means even at 5 power, Bighorn trades into a single card. So we make the elemental 6 power then, so it's guaranteed to kill 2 things. And then we send in the elemental and the Tycoon. Sack a mercenary over playing Cactarantula. Feel like that's the play. Spinewood's Armadillo is going to cycle for mana fixing and gain them all the way back up to 17. They're almost just back to starting life totals here. Prosperity Tycoon is still looking very good, at least. They still have 6 toughness on board. Double block Bighorn. I mean, if they double block Bighorn, I kill Girolf. And I think that's fine. This is a hard choice. Trample's pretty good, but Burrow Fiend's going to be really, really big. All right. We have 2 mana to play a Burrow Fiend and 2 mana to protect Tycoon. Now we're just culling the sheep. Not sacrificing any mercenaries anymore. It's time for the screaming of the lambs. Unfortunate accident, the Burrow Fiend. I always call it unfortunate accent. Oh no, the back for more. Stop. Well, Wily Duke is quite the card draw engine. We have a good amount of removal in this deck, so if we find a way to clear Armadillo out of the way, I think we're still just winning. And we have Mystical Tether and Buried in the Garden. Our +1/+1 then shoot something cards aren't going to be quite enough yet, but if I put Cactarantula on board, they will be. So we can still clear a path, especially when we are drawing an extra card each turn. That is really, really helpful. Bing! They're down to 12. Here's Cactarantula. But I could just start attacking with a 7-power Cactarantula, I guess. What is that one? A 5/5? Yeah, 5/5 Free Strider Commando. Sure, let's start attacking with a 7-power Cactarantula, right? This only gives trample when it attacks, so yeah, no reason to do that. Pre-combat. We will draw the card pre-combat in case we hit one of our tricks. We did not. Go, Cactarantula, go. They gotta just take it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. Yeah, they're still away from that 8 mana board wipe. Try to just Drover Grizzly for trample to the whole board, send in everybody. I mean, 2 more blockers here. It might not be possible. Oh yeah, that's right. Girolf is dumb, so it's 3 more blockers. There's the throw from the saddle. So we can kill the Armadillo and then give the whole board trample. That probably does it, right? Probably. Math is for blockers. Alright, yeah, there's the concession from our opponent. That does do it. Ooh, scary game there. Girolf did a lot of work, but then our own Bomb Rare showed up and our Wily did a bunch of work, drawing us another card every single turn so we could keep slamming down creatures until we outpaced their creature production. We got the bigger board in the end. We are now 3-0, I think. Undefeated, at least a 50-50 run with the deck. Feels like a great way to start it off. Oh, hey, Wily. This is a risky keep. We have 9 green sources in this deck, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 if you count Bucolic Ranch, which I actually would with the Burrow Fiend in the hand. Because then if we hit the ranch, we can still go Burrow Fiend at a Tycoon, which is still pretty good. Nine or 10. We're at like 10 out of 33. And we're on the draw. Like 1/3 chance. Trying to hit it in the first 3 draws, ideally. I feel like this hand is just so good if we find a green source that I keep it on the draw. All right. 0 for 0 for now. Don't you dare mill me. Okay, thank you. There we go. There's the green source. It all worked out fine. Actually, it would have been fine if they milled me to put more creatures in my grave for Burrow Fiend. The one thing I wouldn't like, and it's happened before, is if they like milled me with the Bloodseeker when I was looking for lands and they milled 2 lands and I hit non-land cards. That would be so disappointing. Alright, there's the Vault Plunderer. So it's going to be a card advantage war going on because we got Wily Duke versus Vault Plunderer. I'm assuming Wily Duke is going to die immediately, which is why I think it's still a fair war and not like a oops, they insta-die. Wily Duke and Vault Plunderer probably going to be even value. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they don't have cheap removal. That doesn't look like cheap removal to me. But they could use it post-combat. Servant of the Stinger. Ooh, Death Toucher. Ooh, and their own Burrow Fiend. Alright. We're racing. I mean, I gain another life here. And I can clear out one of their cards with Buried in the Garden. So... Huh. I really want to keep drawing cards off of Wily. I could just play like 2 blockers. I just play Prosperity Tycoon so that I can block Vault Plunder with a 1/1 and Servant with a 4/2. That honestly doesn't seem like a bad turn at all. And then I still have a 2/2 Burrow Fiend on blocks too, because I can just saddle up and then not attack into the Death Toucher. But I also could attack into the Death Toucher because I do have a Drover Grizzly in the hand still. But Burrow Fiend is very good with Tumbleweed Rising in the hand too. It's already going to be a 4/4. If we lose Prosperity Tycoon on blocks here, then it'll be at least a 5/5 when we saddle it again. So next turn I could like Buried in the Garden plus play a 5/5 or a 6/6 in the same turn, which would be pretty monumental. How big is their Burrow Fiend going to be? At least a 3/3? Hopefully it doesn't become a 5/5. As long as it's not a 5/5, I will just trade Tycoon into it. And it is a 4/4. So Tycoon can still block that. Although if they have Snakeskin Veil, that's excellent for them. Right? For their 1 green mana, they make Burrow Fiend a 5/5 and win that combat. I hope Vault Plunderer comes in. That makes my blocks real simple. Alright. Voodoo, voodoo. Take 3. They do have the Veil. Yeah, excellent card to have there. Well, I think we're still in a good position. They only have 1 card left in their hand, and we can do the Buried in the Garden Tumbleweed Rising turn, to where their biggest threat is a 3/2. And we have a massive blocker up. And I'm like way ahead on cards because Wily is just stupid. Will I block with a Burrow Fiend? Probably like absolutely not at this point, right? Nice little 2-mana 6/6 there. They are done. They are so over it. We have the bigger board state and 5 cards in hand now. So they scoop them up and we are 4-0. We have just beelined our way just right into a 4-win run, guaranteeing that we're at least breaking even whatever happens from here. Now it's just time to find out if we can be in the money for today's draft. All right, here we are praying for a green source again, but I'm going to roll with it on the play here. We have Keykeeper no matter what. We have to take up the shield for a combat trick alongside it. And if we hit any lands, even if they're white sources, we can get to a Prosperity Tycoon. Top of this curve. Speaking of hitting any lands, Frontier Seeker can get us a plains towards that Tycoon. And if it misses, it still gets a mount, which will be castable off of Bucolic range, even if it's a green card. Well, does hit the plains. There's a Voracious Varmint. And there's a green source. Beautiful. We get to curve out with the green blade. You love to see it. All of our deserts are tapped, so it doesn't really matter which one we get. Let's just grab a shooty. We definitely want to grab a desert because we want to make Greenblade bigger. But we're not going to play it until after we play Tycoon. We go 4 mana play on turn 4 and then 4 mana worth of cards on turn 5. No, not if they skewer that. Then the desert doesn't matter. Ah, shoot. Yeah, having picked up a desert might mean we're not playing Supplier next turn, because I still think it is much better to play the Tycoon than anything else this turn. And if I don't hit an untapped land, I can still play just 2 of these spells. That'll be a perfectly solid turn. We are against green-red, so probably tons of damage-based removal from our opponent and some real beefy green creatures. There's the hell to pay, kill the Tycoon, sure. Spend the whole turn doing it, but get a treasure out of it seems like a fair trade. Wily, hello. I don't have any mounts right now, actually, so Wily doesn't seem that crazy. I might hold off on Wily to hold up, take up the shield, throw from the saddle stuff. I mean, this is a sorcery, so it's not holding it up. But I don't really want to play Wily when I'm not immediately drawing cards off of them. Like, at least I don't want to play Wily until... Oh, I should have buffed the Frontier Seeker. That was loose. I was going to say, I at least don't want to play Wily until I can cast Wily and hold up Take Up the Shield in the same turn. Take Up the Shield should be able to counteract any red removal or green removal. Keep our creature on board. Yeah, I missed out on a point of damage there. We should have absolutely mercenaried up the Seeker. Alright, well, welcome to my face, Varmint, right? Yeah, welcome to my face. I don't want to take up the shield while they have all this untapped mana. And they're low enough that Keykeeper is a threat. Alright, 6th mana. If I want to kill the Pulverizer, I need to create a 4-power creature. Which I could do with Take Up the Shield pre-combat, but it's probably better to just play Wily. The problem with playing Wily is I would cast Wily and throw from the saddle, and then I would not have take up the shield up for Wily. I don't know. I like killing that giant creature. I feel like that's a worthwhile use of Wily. They have a 1-mana card with that? Oh, I guess Varmint's ability they could use off the treasure. Save a Snakeskin Veil is going to be gross. Snakeskin Veil off the treasure. I don't actually know how Arena works. If you have a treasure token and a 1-mana destroy an artifact or enchantment, does it let you hold up for that ability when your opponent doesn't have any art? Because the only legal target for the Varmint is the treasure. Can you sack a treasure to try to destroy that target treasure? That's super weird. Oh, I did it again. I was too confused talking about other things and I didn't get my 1 extra point of damage in here. I feel like I have enough mana to hold Keykeeper back, but whatever at this point. I've got a Bucolic Ranch I can dump mana into as well. I haven't drawn any mounts this game, so the odds are getting higher that this actually hits something. The Gauntlet special. We've missed out on 2 extra points of damage for absolutely no reason this game. Uh-oh, White Splash. Oh, buried in the garden, sure. Goodbye, Wily. If it's just removal, if it's not the bomb rare itself, that's fine. I'm scared of the bomb rare itself. I'm tempted to put the counter on the mercenary just so I don't have to remember to keep using it. I can just attack in with a 2/2. But, no. That's not the correct play. I'm just going to try to actually remember to use my mercenary's ability from now on. 2 cards left in hand. Feels like a great position, but there are plenty of cards in the format that can single-handedly flip things around here. Dance of the Tumbleweeds is a pretty good one, but it's not quite a full 180 here. We're still definitely in the lead thanks to our flyer. We just can't get in on the ground at all. Ooh. I guess that's only a 4/4. That's not that big of a deal. Yeah, they're still just dead in 2 swings. Let's just make sure to hold up, take up the shield. Take up the shield should stop any green or red removal. It is not going to stop their white removal spells, though. Yeah, we can try to win off of a wide board state on the ground, so we'll go for Tumbleweed Rising instead of dumping our man into the ranch. So we have to hold up the 2 for the take up the shield just in case. That life gain would have mattered, but we have +1/+1. So we hit for exactly 5 in the sky. And our opponent has a terrible, terrible time. And that is officially a 5-0 undefeated start all the way into the money today. Really excellent stuff from this deck. We got into the strongest archetype. It was wide open in this draft pod, and we have some spicy things just rolling on out. 5-0 heading into game 6, and we're on double mythic now. We're mythic on the main account and the alt account. Who's the better drafter, Gauntlet X or Gauntlet XL? Maybe we'll run up into him, and we'll have to find out. He's out there somewhere. All right, here we are on the play. This time we need the white source. I mean, it's worked out great so far. Just not caring about needing the secondary color. Again, we do have like 9 sources of each color, so odds are not bad to hit it at some point early on. And this is another hand where we have a couple early plays. We have the Sentry and then the throw from the saddle for removal, because I don't think they'll spend removal on the Sentry. So we know we'll be able to do 4 damage to their first threat with our throw from the saddle. Eroded Canyon. Shoot me in the face for 1, and boom goes the dynamite. Let's drop a Frontier Seeker since the sentry's not going to attack in unless I cast throw from the saddle. Next turn. I guess I could take up the shield my sentry just to swing for 4 every turn, but that doesn't feel particularly exciting. I don't hate take up the shield for duelist as a trade because there's always like a decent possibility they just don't even want to block and we just get 2 free points of damage. All right. We'll take that trade then. Obviously, it would be better for us if they didn't block. I think it was worth the gamble there. That was the fancy Free Strider Commando there. Did you see the mana spent thing? At the little mana spent green, blue, red? Nice. All right. Play Sentry and Stable Master. Next turn, I drop Cactarantula and just send in with our little Sentry. I should have played these post-combat. They'd have less information about what's coming here. But I am very lazy when I play on Arena. I try to do all that stuff when I'm playing in Paper Magic, but I am so lazy when it comes to Arena because it like defaults so much stuff. I just let the auto-tapper do what it wants. So often. And I'll just cast everything main phase 1 so that it skips through the rest of my turn. I don't have to click as much. But it's always better to give your opponent as little information as possible when they're making decisions. Especially like if you want them to not block when you're sending in a creature that would trade, if you attack in before you play all of your creatures, then they have to worry about the 5 mana you have up that could be spent on combat tricks. You know, little stuff like that, but I'm a lazy man. I ain't doing all that right now. All right, they're down to 13. Selvala. Well, that's going to get them at least 1/1/1, I bet. Yep. Excellent card, even when I immediately kill it, which is what I'm absolutely doing right now. Leave this earth. Get into the grave, please, and thank you very much. And Tumbleweed Rising continuing to be excellent in this deck. We're about to just cast a 2-mana 7/7 off the top deck. Two mana 7/7, baby. Let's go. As long as I don't misclick and plot it, that would be mega bad. Wily Duke. Traitor. Well, Wily, have I got something for you, traitor? I got a nice little garden for you. They have to chump here. They take 11. That's so rude. When they take 13, they take more than lethal. Congregation Gryff, a lifelinking blocker, is definitely good. Savage Smash, gain life off of the kill. They are not quite dead. Even to Collector's Cage? Oh, they are to Collector's Cage. I'm gonna tuck away Wily. But yeah, they block the 7/7 to be at 7 post-combat, but I just make the other creature 7 power too. Alright, well, that was dumb. I forgot we had Collector's Cage in our deck, by the way, so that is my goal for the next 1 to 3 games. We're 6-0 right now. Right, so having the goal of getting a 7-win run, I think that's pretty reasonable, pretty standard. We just need to win one of the next 3 games. I mean, I could fall apart here and just play terribly and draw terribly. That's always a thing too. But the bigger goal is to play with the cards that we haven't done yet, so we can show off all of the deck. And I didn't know what cards those were until my last draw of that game. Collector's Cage, where you been, buddy? Hopefully we get to play around with Collector's Cage a little bit in our final games of Magic, but I mean, whatever happens here, cannot be unhappy with 1,800 gems, and we've got 3 shots at the max prize out here, so let's just get into those final battles. Here we are for our first shot at the final boss. Our opponent's on the play, and we don't do anything till turn 4 unless we top deck cheap spells, but I am the king of top decking cheap spells, don't worry about it. See? We can definitely cast this with no creatures on board. We'll be fine. Don't worry about it, we're not about to get steamrolled by green-white aggro. And it would be some justice, because that's what we've been doing. No 3-drop, let's go. We're not getting steamrolled. We get to play Tycoon next turn. And then we just get to play a card every turn. Turn 4, 5, 6. Uh-oh. Okay, now we're getting steamrolled. Giant Beaver is gigantic. It is in the name. They have the removal for Tycoon. Getting slammed for 7 here. Probably even 8, because it could be the +1/+1 counter on a creature, then shoot something. So far, our gamble is not looking great. Kept a slow hand gambling on drawing anything that costs 3 or less, and we didn't. Tumbleweed Rising, I guess, technically, but it's not castable till we have other creatures on board, so still had no plays till turn 4 this game on the draw. Which can absolutely be a death sentence. But while the Tumbleweed Rising isn't something we could play on turn 2 or 3, it is something that can still help us catch up later, because it's going to get us to a turn where we can play like a 4-drop and like a 2-mana 4/4 5/5 or something. Alright, yeah, that is definitely the play there for them. I was expecting with how long the turn was taking, they might not have had the great removal here, but I just wanted to really make sure to use it as powerfully as possible there. But yeah, like now I can play Cactarantula this turn, and then I'm leading into Tycoon plus Tumbleweed Rising for turn 6 for multiple blockers. So again, Tumbleweed Rising, not a good draw, because we didn't get to play a 2 or 3 drop, but we didn't get punished like as terribly as possible. Still punished enough, though. Probably. Yeah, I mean, I go to 2 here if I don't jump block. Alright. 3 blockers is the best play. And it's not a great one. Another giant beaver. Oh, Lord. They can have the other beaver jump out of the first one, so they have another 5/5 backup. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Alright, well. Use 1 creature to kill the 5/5, trump the rest of the damage. Sterling Supplier makes our remaining creature big enough to trade into their giant beaver. And there's a 2-drop for a chump as well. Actually, for a double block on the 4/4. It's not impossible to stabilize from here. It would require some bad draws from our opponent, but they are on 7 lands, so far so good on that. I mean, I guess we are too. But we needed all this mana. we might be able to turn this into a top deck war, which would be surprising. It would be a top deck war in our opponent's favor, because they have the life total lead by a ton. But you never know what's going to happen when you're both at the mercy of your draws. It doesn't look like that's the case. Yeah, top deck Snakeskin Veil there is gross. Can still trade Cactarantula into the Beaver, so again, not completely over. Keykeeper can't tap that. It is a mount. Ooh, and I don't get to play Collector's Cage this game? Well, that is super bad. The Frontier Seeker miss is a massive deal. That was like our way to get ahead a little bit. Or really catch up. Not really get ahead. Okay. Again, because that's a mount, we can't really do anything. If Keykeeper could tap that, then we would just already be ahead now. So I guess whenever they hit a combat trick, they're gonna crush us no matter what, so we might as well just be cool with getting 2-for-1 on blocks so that we can start pushing in damage here. Give them less opportunities to draw into something. Wow. Alright, well that was a good one. That was a good one. When I chump here, I can swing back for 8? Oh no, I can't. That has Vigilance. Oh my god, yeah, that made it a permanent 7/7 against my 6/5. That was one of the best draws in the whole deck, I imagine. Well, I can still double block and lose my whole board. Oh, they still have another spell here. Is it another throw from the saddle? Wow, basically the rare version. Filthy. You got me. Arena's got jokes. Fashionably 1 turn late from just straight up winning us the game. If we killed their Beaver before they drew all that stuff, they wouldn't have anything to use their removal on, and we would win. Dang. Yeah. Just a bad lineup in the end. I mean, I kept a risky hand, so fair enough. But just a slightly different sequence of draws wins us that game pretty hard. Because all we have to do is kill the Beaver, and then their last 2 draws are terrible. Primal Might and Throw from the Saddle with no creatures on board. We would have just killed them in 2 swings. Pretty easy. Bummer in the end. It is our first loss. We are 6-1 heading into game 8. Alright, here we are for game 8 on the draw, but we've got Sentry with Throw from the Saddle. They're probably not killing Sentry, so that's 4 damage removal right there. There's a Buried in the Garden for more removal, and a Cactarantula we can ramp into off the Buried in the Garden. This is a great start. Another Throw from the Saddle? It could be an issue if they do decide to kill all our creatures, which they might with Rakdos. Yeah, Rakdos crimes the deck with this Raven on board. I think with 2 copies of Throw and a Buried in the Garden, we're going to use these really willy-nilly. So, if they are tapped out, I'm just going to kill something to attack for 4 with Bristlepack Sentry next turn. They are mostly tapped out. They're tapped out enough for me. Although I could play a Keykeeper. Yeah. I guess. I'll just play the Keykeeper. Let's play the defensive here since we are on the draw. Make sure this game grinds out and we get some big green blockers that'll be hard for Rakdos to attack through. I'll have to throw removal at them, and then when they do, we'll draw cards. There's the Coyote. 2 damage in the sky. That's it, alright. No value from plotting the Coyote then. And then a Deadeye Duelist, and they are stuck on mana over there. Alright, I can bury it in the garden and still have 2 Throw from the Saddles and a Mystical Tether, so I'm going to do that in the interest of ramping into Cactarantula. The one flaw in this plan is that I don't really care about any of these creatures yet, but I guess the most annoying is the 1/3 reach. That keeps pinging us and committing a crime to damage with Raven as well. That seems like the most annoying. So I shall get rid of that. Keykeeper and Coyote trade off, and we pass from there. Take 1 from the Raven, and they are just stuck on mana. Well, you can play at that game. We can't play Cactarantula quite yet, just 1 land off. Here's the Stable Master. We can play Cactarantula next turn. I don't think it's that bad to cash this in here. The hit for 4. Deal with their only permanent. Alright, another Deadeye Duelist. Not a great blocker. Here's Cactarantula. It can bounce off the Stable Master, so it's not a terrible blocker. But it doesn't block the Sentry, and that's the important part. That's the big boy. Lava Spur Boots, they can make it 2 power. I like our position right now. Really, the only thing that I don't currently like is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, is the fact that I was going to see if it's worth just killing that for lethal this turn, but it's not lethal this turn. Anyways, the one thing I don't like is at this rate, if things keep up and our opponent keeps missing land drops, we're probably going to win this game, and that would mean we win this game without playing our +1/+1 counter rare that we've been looking for. Want to play a game with that. Alright, one final turn to do something crazy here to survive. Alright, but our opponent is just mana screwed all the way out of the game, and while it is a 7-win run, it does end in a little bit of a bummer. 7-1, also really good record. Didn't even get 2 losses in there, but we didn't really get a chance to play with every one of our cards. I guess technically we did. Technically, the one game where we drew Collector's Cage, we would not have hit for lethal without it. We needed the +1/+1 counter to hit for 7 against our opponent that was at 6, gaining 1 from lifelink. But we didn't get to do the whole thing where we get to keep putting counters on the board every turn, or we get to try to cast the Hideaway card or anything, so I don't really get to say how good or bad Collector's Cage is, but again, in theory, it's not that hard to cast your Hideaway card, and if you're casting a 4 or 5 mana card off of that, that's such a mana discount, even if it took time to get there, especially when 1 mana for a +1/+1 counter every turn is already just a fine deal when you have that extra mana sitting around. I think this card is excellent, but I cannot prove it because we didn't use it at all. So I can't really say biggest over and underperformers when it comes to Collector's Cage's power level. Wily, I think, is the biggest overperformer. I thought this card was going to be like pretty solid, but it was absolutely incredible. And I think a lot of that was draw dependent. It was dependent on, did we draw it when we had saddle creatures? Well, we literally always drew it with saddle creatures. Did we draw it when our opponent didn't have removal? Yeah, pretty much always. So we had really lucky wily draws where they couldn't kill it immediately. So we drew like 4 or 5 cards off this thing in multiple games. So I don't think that's like a fair assessment of the card being completely broken, but it is very, very, very good. And I don't think there were really any underperformers. I think everything really showed up, did its job quite well, and I'm super happy with the deck, so we will take it. Another 7-win run today, 7-1 for the maximum prize out of 2,200 gems and 6 packs of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed this video and are interested in seeing more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.